Alright, start recording. It's Stevivor's Friendly Fire Show, episode 215 for the start of October 2022. I am tired. I'm also called Steve Wright. I'm back from Italy. This is the first not pre recorded show we've had in 2 weeks. It's very exciting. We'll get into that in a second, I'm sure, though. Joining me, of course, my friend and yours, Mr. Ben Salter. Hello, Ben. How have you been? Just like slumming it in Adelaide instead of jet setting across the world?
That's right. You've been traveling in this like post-travel world, or it's a thing again. So very jealous. I hope to do it. Well, I'm going to do it next year, so it's going to be fun for me. But you've just done it now, so
Yes,
you've
well,
been.
Japan opened its borders back up since I've been away, I think. Or maybe
That's
just
right.
before? I can't remember. But,
They're opening like next week, I think. But we can't go next week, but we could go next year. So that's the plan.
well, unless something catastrophic happens and we're forced back into our.
I'll talk about that. Let's not worry about what could happen. Let's talk about what did happen. You actually did it, and nothing catastrophic happened.
No, except it was weird because on every flight to Europe, I was sitting beside a person who had a mask on for like the first 5 seconds of the flight, and then they took their mask off
Yeah.
immediately and just relied upon those around them to do the right thing. But the longest flight to Europe that I had straight to Abu Dhabi, the person beside me like literally took off his mask and then fell asleep, but pointed his face directly at me and proceeded to like in his sleep cough on my arm about
Mm,
every half an hour. So I just had like a giant thing of hand sanitizer and just had to keep wiping my arm down. So it was like, in terms of anxiety, my levels were quite high. But like once you're in Europe, especially Italy, like everybody pretty much had COVID, so no one seemed to
it's
care. Like it was
fine.
just like, so I got over it pretty quickly. Uh, I was sick before I left, and if you listen to like all of the episodes that we've had for the past, I don't know, 4 weeks, you'll hear that I'm like super nasally. I just had like a post nasal drip the entire time to the point where I'm on antibiotics now because by PAX I'll be good again theoretically. It was weird for the whole time in a different country, like having like a little bit of a tickle and a cough in your throat and just trying to be like, don't cough, no, oh,
You
like I'm
could.
not, it's not COVID, but oh god. Um, but anyway, Firenze was amazing. Like literally, it's Assassin's Creed 2, like to the point where both Matt and I like kind of did this like involuntary move at the big open area. I forget that they're all mixed in my head now. But like there's a place that you go in Firenze and you it's like, well, not Firenze. Firenze was the Duomo. There's a place in Venice where it's like everything around it is restricted area, and Matt and I both kind of like tensed up because like we felt like we couldn't be there because we'd get caught out by imaginary guards, if that makes sense.
You've been totally overtaken by Ubisoft, so they've infected you.
Pretty much.
But, yeah,
Firenze was amazing. The Duomo, we like stayed right on top of it. It was like the best view. It rained just catastrophically one night, and the ceiling above our bed just started leaking. So that was a weird
good.
night. Just it was like amazing and picturesque, and like the weather was cool. But then like we just had to sleep in the kitchen on a
At
mattress on
least
the
it wasn't
floor.
your house, anyway.
Yeah, well, and literally, I could have climbed out the window onto a roof and like onto the Duomo, but I resisted the urge because I think I would have gotten in trouble.
Yeah, you know how to do it though, but you should not do that.
Correct.
Hmm.
So I had
That
a
sounds
really
great.
cool couple weeks. You had maybe the NBN. Is it time for an NBN update?
Can you not feel the power of fiber, Steve? It's finally in. NBN will only install your new fiber cable to like the furthest away wall, so it's like miles away the router. But so anyway, it's still better. It's like solid quality fiber. I'm getting like 220-ish down on my Xbox and PlayStation downloads. Fabulous. So I would highly recommend it if you can get it. Took them ages to install it, like 3 or 4 appointments, but good. It's free as well.
And worth the effort now that it's
Yeah,
done.
one more step. I need to now get another man to come and install like a Ethernet cable in the wall somewhere so I can move the router back inside, which should be easy, but it's hard to book anyone these days. You need to wait to get someone.
Yeah, like Powerline probably will work in the interim, or no? Oh, you're
What's
on probably
working?
different circuits or something in your house.
Yeah, and I'm talking the cable that goes from the NBN box to the router, like the first level step. So the router has to be next to my car in the far wall of the garage. If it was on the other side of the garage, it could have popped through the wall into like the house.
Yeah.
But the guy's just like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm like, can't do it. Too much. It's not like that's beyond the bare minimum that we do. Apparently, you just get lucky with your NBN guy if they're going to do it or not. Because the other two guys who came before that, like, dug a whole trench and like dug up my driveway and repaved it over like 2 days and came back on a Saturday morning to finish it. Like, they did a good job.
So,
And the next guy's just
could
like,
you come back and drill holes through all my walls and like set up the cabling to get in? Yeah, it's so hit and miss, and like I get why. Like these people are probably just like maxed out all day every day doing this for people, and like I'm sure most installations aren't easy, but like
yeah. Anyway, what I have found is working quite good. Not as good, but pretty good. Is like a AI mesh like backhaul over 5G. So I've got a second router pretty close to me now. And it gives like, so previously when I first tried it and I did like the faraway Xbox download test, it was like the same as my shitty old connection. Then I just tried this. I was like, I'll use the second router to get like the Wi-Fi and plug into that. Way better. And it makes sense. Like an actual router has a good Wi-Fi chip in it, and a console probably has a pretty small one. So yeah, anyway, that's my hot tip. If you can't get a cable in, you're renting, just like mesh together some things and you'll get a better result.
just duct tape and hope, really, and see how you go.
Yeah, but it's wireless duct tape, so it's fine. You never know.
Well, nice. We are literally 2 days away from PAX Australia. I was really confused in one of the recordings because I had nothing better to do when I was basking on my holidays than to listen to us, even though I knew what we talked about.
Oh my goodness, that's how. I'm not even going to unpack that. Carry on.
I was dedicated. But PAX Australia, at the time of listening to this, it's literally 1 day away. We're recording this on Wednesday. The Australian Game Developer Awards are taking place. I guess I am currently still a judge, and just didn't go because sort of feeling a little bit post-nasal drip and trying to sort that out before I see people.
It's the busiest time this weekend,
involved.
Steve.
Yeah.
Gotta relax.
Exactly. But by the time this comes out, this podcast, that is, we'll already have known that Cult of the Lamb basically cleaned up. It won 4 of the 13, I believe, awards, including Game of the Year, of course. Wildflowers, which is, I think, on Steam now and was like basically a mobile game, won 2 awards. I think Victoria ultimately took 10 of the 13 awards. This is, again, not a fact-based show, but I think I'm pulling the facts out of my behind. So it's very interesting, and I think the overarching message is that there's a lot of really good games coming out of Australia, and of course that's what PAX is about. There's going to be a ton of indies set up through the weekend. Probably nothing else really. So a lot of cool things to check out. Yeah.
That was our tip anyways. Ignore the big publishers because they have such gigantic lines normally for stuff which you can just go buy. And the indies are normally more interesting. Of course, it's cooler if there are kind of at least the console owners are there with something to show. But they haven't been for years. So like that's already not what PAX is about anymore. So go check out the cool indie games.
I think the biggest draw card in terms of like big spectacles could be the Amazon Prime Video booth. It's like 3 different rooms. One's themed for the boys, one's themed for Lord of the Rings, whatever that is called.
Rings of Power,
yeah,
I think.
There we go. And the other one is Jack Ryan. So you can go and kind of like do little like mini game things themed on these TV shows, and then you walk away with like pins, swag. And that's what PAX is all about, right? Swag. All the swag.
I would prefer like a 3-month free of Amazon Prime, but whatever you want to give me.
Well, there you go. In terms of eating and drinking places, because that's what you wanted to talk about. Because I'm cheating, we did notes.
We did a PAX preview already, but we haven't done what to do when you pop out of PAX. So when you've had enough of all the people and you just want to sit down for a little bit, where should you go nearby?
I blew your mind today because I had to go to Apple for something that I can't talk about yet. You can probably figure it out because I'll tell you tomorrow as of Thursday at like 3 p.m. But the Five Guys in Freshwater Place, so basically right near Crown, is now open. And I went in not wanting to get Five Guys because it was like 3 p.m. I just wanted to get a Coke Freestyle drink and have Coke Cherry Vanilla Diet something. And they don't have one. They just have a normal fountain drink thing. And it's like
that makes sense.
Blasphemy.
Because like it's such an American thing, that weird multi-coke machine. I've never seen it outside of America.
I had one in Italy. Just saying.
And Italy. Okay. Well, I don't mind
And
about that.
London.
Well, I'm gonna go get Five Guys at some point. That's pretty close by. That's cool.
I'll absolutely go with you, by the way. So don't think I'm not having Five Guys just because of the lack of freestyle. But
It's gonna be so busy though, so we might have to go for like a brunch Five Guys or something to get in before the
yeah,
big
it
line.
wasn't busy today, but I guess it's not PAX today, so that also makes sense. But we can get takeaway and then just go and sit if it's not raining.
Yeah.
In the
Well,
vast
I
open
will.
spaces.
Five Guys is great. The burgers are great. It is outrageously expensive for fast food. So like a burger and fries is gonna cost you like $30 Australian. I last had it in London, I think, and that's about what it costs. Like it's ridiculous. It's not worth it on a regular basis, but like once a year, great.
Exactly. And I guess in similar veins, like good places that are nearby include whatever it's called. There's like a burger place in Crown. I was gonna say Huxtaburger, but it's not Huxtaburger. That's pretty good. There's a whole bunch of places up and down South Bank, really, and you can venture into the CBD for more. Collins Street, there's Royal Stacks, which is kind of like
That's pretty good.
a Shake Shack clone. It's not too far away, I guess, from PAX. It's kind of far away, but not too far. Are there any places that aren't burger places? I don't know.
Well, I mean that's pretty what you're having around a PAX type of thing. There's also like all those little bar places that are on the wharf thing.
Yes.
I can't give you a better description than that because I always just wander out there, kind of behind the convention center. I forget what that area is actually called.
Yeah, it's called the
Good
weird
name.
walkway. So things that I know are still there. There's like the Munich Brauhaus, which is like a German themed beer hall, but also has kind of like, I'm imagining things like sauerkraut and bratwurst and similar. Melbourne Public is probably our haunt of choice. That we usually have our little Stevivor drink get together thing there.
Been had for years, so we don't have a haunt anymore. We can
Well,
get a new one.
Yeah, well,
If
oh,
they-
well, I think we're going there. I've already picked that one because I knew it still exists. There's
Or
like
if
a
they would like to
sushi
sponsor
place, I think.
Sponsor Steve. Yeah, probably. There's
Well-
loads of places like that. If you want gaming bars, you need to go a little bit further out. So the only one I'm aware of is Bartronica, which is pretty far away. That's Flinders Lane. But like you can get a tram and it's not too far. And there's a couple of others which I don't actually know where they are because I've just kind of wandered in randomly.
I think GG Easy is Collins Street adjacent. Like GG Easy, like good game, easy. Like you
Yeah.
can just Google it. Again, not a fact-based show. There's a tabletop-centric place that I always forget the name of, but I went there with like Job and Luke when they were in town one time. It was pretty good, reasonably good.
I think that might be the one I've been to once, like years ago. You probably must have been there as well. Maybe you weren't. I can't remember. It's one like that which feels less gamey, like it's game themed. It might be that tabletop one because people are playing games at the table, but it was less like Bartronica. There's a Nintendo 64 in the corner style.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that one.
I can't remember. Like Melbourne's good for stuff. So just like find a hole in the wall, grab some friends. You're gonna be, hard pressed to find seats and stuff. So if you find a place, just like cling to it.
Yeah.
Earlier the better, but of course, you don't want to eat dinner at 3 p.m. So just see how you go.
Depends what you're doing.
And come to my 2 panels. Friday at 4 if you want to learn how to pitch to the likes of me, overworked and overtired and jet lagged and without a lot of budget, and see if you can persuade me to pay you to write something, because I'd like to. By all means, don't be hesitant, but I'll also be honest if we have no money. I've engaged with a whole bunch of like different writers. Like we have a big cis white male culture going on unintentionally. So there's a whole bunch of people that I hope to engage soon, which is cool. And a new writer who actually went to school with Eleni, our first RMIT intern, who's pitched like a fantastic article that I'm not going to say too much about, but is coming out as soon as it's written, and it's quite engaging. So he's putting the advice that I have yet to give people into practice.
Well, yeah, fantastic. These people don't even need you, Steve. They've already done it. And what's your other one on? We've heard about that one before.
7 p.m. Saturday, while you're at the Play On party, I'll be doing Nerd Quiz with Alice Clark, Donald Duong, Jess Zamet, and Jam, who I forget their name in full. They are Alice's latest mentee via Games Hub, and they seem like they're good fun. And I'm really sorry that I've forgotten their name in full, and it'll be fun. I'll learn it and I'll talk about it next time. How about that?
Cool, perfect. Well, you can go be a nerd on the quiz. That would go against, as much as I want to say people should go to see that, it would go against our own advice of once you get a seat at a table, stay there, because that's prime time. That's dinner time, Steve. But if you're out watching panels, go watch that one. There's some panels go until like 10, 11 p.m. or something like that. So you, even once the show does close, if you want to hang out at PAX, you still can and watch like a bunch of panels. I'd probably fall asleep if I did that, but you can do that.
Look, I'll be honest. If it was 7 p.m. on a Saturday and I wasn't in a panel, I probably wouldn't go to a panel. So I don't feel bad if you don't make it. I have the option, I think, of taking my laptop and like recording both of the panels. So like maybe I will do that, and we'll put them as like subsequent bonus downloads. I'm kind of toying with the idea of having to have a backpack and a laptop and stuff, or not having anything. And I kind of think that one's gonna win, but maybe because Alice is gonna be there all the time. Maybe I'll ask Alice if she wants to record it and send me the recording. Same thing for Seamus Byrne at Biteside, who is kind of the organizer and host of the Friday panel. I should probably remember to ask them about that. I'm going to make a quick note while you launch us into our first proper topic, Ben.
Well, they're proper topics. There's nothing bigger than PAX and you going overseas. But in terms of gaming news, Steve, Overwatch 2 is here. So as of today, at recording time, we've finally been able to play it. And it wasn't quite what I expected in that it wasn't a new game. I tried to download it because I just hit the tile on the home screen of Xbox and it kind of said, download Overwatch 2. And I hit it and it said, you already own this. And I thought, that's weird, but it doesn't really matter. Hit that, nothing installed. Went to my queue. Apparently it had already finished installing. And I thought, man, this Xbox, which is fully turned off because of energy saver mode, has somehow done some magic and already downloaded this free-to-play game. No. Then it wants to update and it just updates the original Overwatch with like a 23 gig download and turns it into Overwatch 2. So not a complaint, just an observation that that's a strange way to do things. And it confused me a little bit. But then it does eventually launch and you get into it. Did you actually manage to get a game today? Because there's been some issues on launch day in terms of getting in.
Tell you what, I've got about 6 or 7 games in. I didn't win a single one.
I did.
And that could be why I'm angry. But it was weird because so it went down for maintenance. What day is it today?
Wednesday. The original game. Yeah.
Overwatch 1 went down for maintenance, I think, Monday. Nope, like early Tuesday morning Australian time. So I was jet lagged as hell, and I'm like, I gotta try to stay up. I'm gonna try to stay up. I'm gonna do something. And I ended up playing probably like 10 matches of Overwatch on Monday night, and like just steamrolled the competition. I was feeling really good about it, and of course, like when you're winning, the game is good. And just today, like I don't know if I'm awful or paired with just like inept people or something to do with like the way they've merged your accounts and brought you into the new Overwatch and like paired you at your skill level that you think you have. Like maybe I'm just like crap compared to everybody else. I don't know. Like it was just I was playing attack or support and just like was always kind of on the objective, not like just running in the open and just like getting mowed down as if it was Call of Duty, but just like couldn't get teamwork going. Like I was the support person doing more damage than my attack people. It's way faster to me than the original Overwatch. It's now 5v5 instead of 6v6. Like it was a lot of chaos, and paired with all the stuff that you were saying about installation, it's basically just like literally replaced on Xbox anyway.
The original.
So like if you had any achievements in Overwatch 1, you already have those in Overwatch 2. Not because it's like giving you new achievements and copied it over. It's like literally Overwatch 2 has replaced Overwatch 1, which is weird.
Yeah.
So that there's no like motivation to go and play more and like start from scratch and do like, like the original things, because you've already done that. You're just kind of continuing on. I cut you off.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't mind that in that it's a free to play game. So it's not like a Splatoon situation where it's a numerical sequel, but you need to pay full price again. It's still free to play, but it is a little confusing in that I kind of thought it was going to be a separate new game and everything would start afresh, um, and everyone would kind of be at the same point. But that's not the case. It's treating me like a totally new player. I had to do the tutorial, but I hadn't played much of the first game. I played a couple of hours. And so to me, it felt like exactly the same game to the point that I even like the map I was playing on, I remembered. And I was like, I played this in 2016 or 17 or whenever it came out. And obviously it is like the 5v5 versus 6v6. I don't remember what the player count was. So it just felt the same. I realized there has been obviously some serious balancing and there is changes to it, but it doesn't feel sequel change. And I kind of feel like maybe they should have called it Overwatch something else. Like make it clear that this is like a big upgrade and a big refresh, but maybe Overwatch 2 wasn't quite the right name.
1.5.
Well,
Doesn't have
I
the
don't
same
know.
ring to it.
But even the splash screen just says Overwatch when you actually launch the game. Like that's the big brand. Did it need to be Overwatch 2? I'm sure they had big debates about this and they've decided that's the easiest way to they're probably trying to get new people in, being that it's now like clearly free to play. It's on a new console generation compared to what the last one launched on. I don't even remember if the first game was on Switch or not, but this one is. It's kind of like it's definitely a reboot in that sense, and they probably got a massive influx of players. I know they kind of had an attack today, which brought them down a little bit and made it harder to get in, but there's still like a lot of people trying to get in and play this game. So it probably revived it a little bit, rejuvenated it. But is that going to be short term because people kind of realize, hang on a second, especially people like me who played the first one a little bit, are they going to come in and kind of say, this is the same thing? Not to say it's a bad game at all. I do quite like the concept of Overwatch. It's not I kind of thought it would be different as someone who wasn't massively drawn into the first game.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like I really like Overwatch, and I keep kind of dipping my toe back into it. But yeah, like I went back in out of curiosity, which I'm sure a lot of people are, and that's why the queues are so high. And the DDoS attack didn't help, obviously. But like once you get in, like there are differences. It's a little bit faster. There's more like it's more aggressive. But like it's not anything new. And I've kind of like I've gotten all the achievements for the characters that I like, and the ones that I don't really like, I don't really play. And like that's kind of like in terms of me, you know how I work.
That's
Like
why you play.
I have achievements. So like, oh, I've done all that. What's the next thing? There's not a lot of reason to play more than I already would have if I just decided to play Overwatch one night. And I occasionally will just jump in and play Overwatch just for fun, but like this isn't going to be like a main game that I have. It's just like, oh, okay, that's there, and now has a 2 in it. There's a whole bunch of stuff coming, I suppose, like the story-based single player? It's story-based. It's probably co-op story stuff, but like that's not here yet. So maybe in the future I'll kind of jump in and want to play through it, but like I've had a couple matches. I'm kind of done already, to be honest.
What if you hypothetically you weren't playing this for the achievements, you were just playing it because you love Overwatch? Let's take a Gaetano style player, for example, someone who's been playing Overwatch quite regularly for 5 or so years, probably longer. Say you were that type of player, you were regularly playing it, maybe you fell off a little bit recently. Would this bring you back in? Is it enough? Is it different enough to kind of refresh it for that type of player?
I don't. Well, no. Like I don't know. I don't think so. I think Toronto is the example here is really about like the Overwatch meta and still keeps up with it. And I think at a certain level you need to be that dedicated, need to be that across what's going on, or else you're just gonna get steamrolled or not have an enjoyable time, or at least you need to have a regular group of players where like you can communicate properly, or else you're just not going to have fun. And correct me if I'm wrong, anyone who's listening, but yeah, like it seems despite the changes, kind of like more of the same. So if you were playing Overwatch regularly, you're still going to play this regularly. I don't think if you've been kind of like bitten by the Overwatch bug, there's a lot going for it at the moment. Does that make sense? Maybe.
Yeah, it's not. It essentially kind of seems like a bit of a pointless exercise so far. They've used it as an excuse to update some things, but it's not going to drastically change the audience. But I do think it will bring in new players. It'll bring in people who think they've missed the first game and they'll try this one because they think it's a sequel and it's a new release. It kind of is, but it's kind of not. So I think that maybe that's what they're going for. They're trying to get new people in. Some of those will stick around and they'll get into the meta, as you say, and they'll kind of get really into it and understand it and follow the community. And maybe that's what they want. And maybe people like you and I who occasionally dip in just play it as we played Overwatch 1. It's not drastically different for us.
Well, I'd be like, if you haven't played that much, I'd be keen to see what you think if you give it a little bit more of a go. Like, I'd imagine if you're like completely new to it, there's this. I don't know how it works because like I've played too much. I didn't get any kind of. But I could have opted into a tutorial, but from what I understand, like if you haven't played before, you have to kind of play to earn the heroes and kind of like slowly evolve. So like, there's probably like a better onboarding experience if you have no experience whatsoever.
Maybe.
And
I still think it's a bit overwhelming. Like you still have so many here. Like I'd forgotten what the controls are and who these different characters are, and it kind of introduces you to one, and it's like that's who you can play as. But then of course, as soon as you start playing, everyone picks that guy because that's the one you've just done the tutorial as. So only one guy can play him.
yeah,
And then it's like you got to pick someone else that maybe you vaguely remember. So I think you have about half the characters unlocked, and I played maybe 3 games and I unlocked 3 more characters. Like it's pretty quick initially. I'm going to assume that slows down, otherwise they're just going to lose you pretty quick.
yeah.
But yeah, they do try to introduce you. You do have to do a tutorial to a certain extent of just like how to shoot, how to capture a point, how to change your hero. Not a huge deal. I definitely would have done this at some point. So there must be a cutoff that's kind of like you haven't played enough. You need to do the tutorial again.
Or
Which
you
is
didn't
fair.
link your accounts properly because there was like this weird rigmarole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had to like make a new BattleNet account, and I must have had one. I can't imagine I didn't have one previously, but it said my email didn't exist, so I just made a new one. Maybe I don't know what happened there. So maybe that's got something to do with it.
Yeah. Well, and like it's very overwhelming because no character plays the same, obviously. And you have so many abilities and it's one, it's difficult to try to figure out exactly what your fingers are doing. And another thing altogether to like coordinate that in an effective manner. And on top of that, it's another thing to coordinate in an effective manner with those around you, which you need to do. I don't know if that's changed a terrible amount 6v6 versus 5v5, but like if like for some reason all the games I played, I just was like I was on the objective and people were around me, and then just like everyone I played with like scattered to the wind because they were more concerned with like staying alive than working as a team to try to do anything. And if you do that, like you're bound to fail. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned. And like I know the lessons. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, but like I don't know how the onboarding process takes someone new and curious about Overwatch 2 to like where they need to be. So who knows?
We'll see how it plays out. I think I'm going to stick with it for a little while, at least until Modern Warfare 2 comes out as a multiplayer game to play. But yeah, you're right. That's the hardest thing getting back into it after years is each character plays so differently. So like when you jump in and who you're going to play as is already taken, so I have to pick someone else pretty quickly because you don't have much time to think about it. And then it's like, well, I know I can shoot and I can see kind of what my gun is, but that's the easy part. It's now what does like left trigger do? Because in most shooters, that's just going to be aimed down the sight. But in this game, it could be one of a number of things. And like even how does my guy sprint? Like they all sprint differently. Some of them just like lurch forward. Some of them can like
some don't. Yeah, yeah.
Some don't. And it's and because these all have cooldowns at different rates as well, it's very much like a while you're dying. That's why I imagine some people have scattered because they're playing new. They're trying to figure out who their character is, and they're like just trying to figure out what they can do first. They're ignoring the objective, and that's the wrong way to play Overwatch. But I kind of get it if you don't know what your guy's doing. And I'm not one to go play. Let's do a practice against the AI to figure out this new character. I'm not going to do that for 20 characters. So it's
well, and you do that, and it's like versus AI who like don't move. Like it's almost useless to a point because like it's you're learning how to use the abilities, but you're not using how to learn them.
Know how to use them in
properly.
Yeah.
But hey,
anyway,
give it a go. It's free to play, so like you know the only thing that's really costing you to try it is your time. So.
That's right.
And like literally your time waiting for the queues to dissipate, but hey.
Hopefully that improves. It takes about half an hour to even get in at the moment, but hopefully in a couple of episodes time we'll loop back to this, see how it's going.
Exactly. If you're playing, let us know how you're going. I'd be curious to hear what you think about it because I know some of you who are listening. we're already playing because I saw you in my friends list. So
Ooh.
call it out. What else? What else do we got, Ben?
Well, I hate to harp on about this, but it's happened again so quickly that I feel like we need to very briefly bring it up. And that is yet another remake slash remaster slash reimagining slash whatever you want to call it from a first party game from Sony in Horizon Zero Dawn is getting what I think is going to be a remaster, but it got reported by some places as remake. We're not going to get bogged down in that again. It's one of those two things. And on the Sony scale, that can range from like a $15 update if you already own the game, which we saw with things like Uncharted, all the way through to The Last of Us, which is a $125 remake. Could be anywhere in there. We don't really know what it is. I think it's probably going to be maybe the first one or somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I think the only in the middle one is maybe like a $30 upgrade, which is what we saw with Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, but that was a director's cut. I think it included DLC or something. Like there was some level of content. I think that's reasonable. Like a small upgrade fee if it's going to be a reasonable remaster. The only thing is, like these games launched in a pretty good state only 5 or so years ago, so it's not like it's a SD game getting a full HD remake. It's going to go from like 1080p to you probably already had a 4K version on PS4 Pro potentially.
It sort of did. So like
Checkerboard,
Zero Dawn was a 2017 game on PS4, which is like pretty late in the PS4 cycle. Obviously not PS5 yet, but it's been patched for PS5, not like fully upgraded to PS5, but it runs in like checkerboard 2160p at like a pretty stable 60 frames. So in terms of like on PS5, like it's running like air quotes a PS5 game already. It's not like native 4K obviously, and like Forbidden West had a whole bunch of extra things. And I guess that's the crux of this potential rumored remaster. It's like taking the accessibility and probably the character models as much as can be from the PS5 game, putting them in PS4, kind of like the Last of Us remaster, remake, whatever you want to call it. But like one was 10 years old and one is 5 years old.
5 years old. Yeah.
And without a price. And if it's $15, great. Like I'll pay $15. But if it's 125 Australian, that's a harder sell.
That's it. You're even out it. If you can buy the PS4 version for $10, which you can right now, and then you can upgrade that for $15 to get that small jump in quality and a few more features. That's fair enough. I'm happy with that. For remake too soon, it does not need that at all. So I think the real question is where is the line for these type of games? Because obviously people keep buying them. They must sell well enough for Sony to say that's easy money. Let's just keep doing it. They're running out of games to remaster.
Yeah.
And now they've kind of moved into remake territory. So 5 years old, like they kind of did it with like Death Stranding. That got an upgrade about 3 years out. But again, that's a move over generation $15 upgrade. I think that's kind of fine at any point.
Yeah.
It's the bigger price and the bigger remake that needs a longer time.
Like we're gonna criticize Sony for especially if it's $125, like kind of double dipping and doing this ridiculousness. Like I guess there are arguments though. Like the Horizon TV show is coming out soonish, and like this will probably be timed for that. And if you've never played the game before, you can buy the $125 fancy PS5 version, and like no skin off your back, it's new to you. But like nothing's in a vacuum. You can't just like look at it from that perspective and say, oh, it's fine. Like you have to look at it from, there's smart delivery on Xbox. Like Overwatch 2 is a great example. Like on PS, entirely different trophy set. Like it's basically a different game, even though you're not paying for that one. Where like most of the Xbox games and Xbox remasters or touch-ups are just like for free. Here you go. Don't pay us any extra money. Like ta-da. And at Sony's worst, they're trying to charge you 125 for something equivalent. So it's, like if people are buying it, like you said, it's hard to fault Sony for doing it, but like it's still not good.
No, I think a game we'll talk about in a second is kind of the benchmark in Cyberpunk launching on, at the time, last gen systems. It didn't launch on the current gen. It only launched, I know it was like a month in, but it still only launched on the old systems. And then when it was finally ready, they didn't charge you again. They just kind of say, here's the upgrade. And it was not a drastic update, but it was enough to make it run better. And it was enough to kind of be like, you're probably better off waiting and playing this version, which is what I'm doing right now. And so anything which is that level or less kind of seems like a rip-off by that as the standard. Like that's the precedent for a massive game to do. And it's third party, so there's no console favoritism or anything like that, or different ways of doing things, because Xbox is not going to do it because it's their thing. They've kind of said that we're not doing that. We're trying to avoid that entirely, and they got the funding to do that, whereas Sony don't. So it's a different situation. So I think a third party is an easy one to look at. And that's the level. If Sony are going to do better than that, by all means, charge for a full remake. But if it's less, give us a $15 upgrade instead.
Yeah, well, and like, this isn't a thing; it doesn't exist yet. But like, I'm pretty sure my thoughts are gonna be, and if I'm wrong, I'll let you know. Like, if you haven't played this before, buy the $10-15 total copy of the game, and have to suffer through the 2017 graphics and frame rate, which, like on a PS5 are up to 60 frames. Like, you're not really suffering. Or, like, if you're super hard pressed, I guess drop $125. But I don't know.
We don't know that's the case yet. I'm thinking it might lean towards the first one. It's going to be like Uncharted. It'll be
I hope so.
cheap upgrade.
I don't. I am pessimistic, but I hope that's the case, because then I'll have less to be pessimistic about. So I'll happily eat my words. Mark my words. I will apologize if I assumed incorrectly, or
Okay.
I'll gloat when I'm right.
We'll wait and see, because that one's still a little while away. What's even further away is CG Projekt Red's like 50 games they announced today, which are going to take decades to be released. It's not actually 50, but it's a lot.
It is a lot.
They kind of outlined their timeline for what I'm thinking is at least a decade, if not longer, probably longer. So to very quickly summarize, they announced an entirely new Witcher trilogy. So 3 games that are apparently going to be released within a 6-year period, which they're making themselves. Then they have an entirely separate Witcher game that's made by an unnamed external developer.
I think they named
Then
them
they
all. Oh wait, hold on. One they did. One they
They
didn't.
named that one's the one they didn't. Not being a fact-based show, I didn't note down what the other one's called anyway.
It's the ones who made the Flame and the Flood. Sorry. Anyway, keep going.
Well, so that's the first spin-off is a Witcher game made by an unnamed studio. The second one is called Codename Sirius, and that's a game in the Witcher universe. So that was a different terminology. The first one was a Witcher game. This one was like a game in the Witcher universe, which suggests different characters, possibly.
It's just Gwent.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, that could be it actually. I've done that before though.
Yeah.
So that's another external developer. So there's 5 games there, all in the Witcher series, 3 made by CG Projekt Red themselves. Then they announced Codename Orion, which is a cyberpunk sequel, which I'm thinking is going to be a long time away, because if you recall, they announced Cyberpunk 2077 in 2012, and it came out in 2020, and the real version came out in 2021. So we're 8-9 years later.
And there's still DLC for 2077 coming. There's that weird like murder mystery thing. I can't remember the name of it. That was just announced recently.
So they're making that themselves, and then Codename Hadar, which is it's a new IP from CG Projekt Red. So they've committed to 5 games themselves there, plus a few which they kind of are overseeing from external developers.
7 total.
Yeah,
7,
and that's 7 total. How long do you think it's going to take to get some of these games? I think we're pushing beyond this generation, probably beyond the next one.
Yeah, and like. Definitely. I like 6 years for the Witcher trilogy, which I don't think is coming out anytime reasonably soon.
They didn't. They said the 3 games will be released within a 6-year period. They didn't say within the next 6 years.
Yeah. So I reckon the Link School new Witcher game is probably not until, let's say, 2024, and that's probably being kind. It might even be 2025. Who knows? So like that's what we're already into 2030 by the time that last one comes out, theoretically. Not even theoretically, probably accurately.
Probably, yeah.
And so one of the games, I can't remember which, is being, I think it's Hadar, or no, one of the games is being worked on by like CD Projekt Red Boston and Vancouver. Okay. Like, so they have a whole bunch of studios, but like I don't think they have, like, they're not going to be churning these out anytime soon. That Projekt Hadar, the new IP, went into concept in 2021, last year. So if it's in conceptual stage, like, they're not working on code or anything yet. So like that's what, 4 or 5
Well, based
6 years.
on Cyberpunk being announced, that's like 8, 9, 10 years
Yeah.
potentially. And they're working on other stuff too. So like no doubt, as we've always seen with these multi-studio developers, one of the games gets closer to being shipped, and all the studios pause what they're doing for a year or two, and they go help finish that game. And so whatever they're doing gets pushed back. That's what Ubisoft do all the time now.
And in the case of Cyberpunk, uh,
Yeah,
ship it too early and then spend the next year and a half getting everybody on board to fix what should have been fixed before it came out. So I
that's
think they've learned their lesson. I think that's not going to happen. Um, there was a real like when they announced the Witcher trilogy, the first of the three games, like that was the big thing. It's like, oh, it's Unreal. It's it's a tried and true engine. Don't worry about that. And they definitely threw that in for I think at least probably the whole trilogy for one. No,
yeah.
definitely the whole trilogy and like maybe two extra games. Like they were very because this was to investors really, not us. Like they were very like it's gonna be stable. Don't worry. Like less effort there because we're just using a tried and true engine, which is good. Like it's you kind of need that assurance given what happened to Cyberpunk.
Committing now to 3 games in 6 years seems a bit bold to me, considering how long they've taken to get their current games out. Like they had Witcher 3 in 2015, Cyberpunk in 2020, and they're still working on that now. So it just seems like a lot. And even if it's kind of a thing, they do it like Lord of the Rings style, where they start in kind of all three at once. And these don't come out for 3 or 4. The first one's not out for 3 or 4 years, and they've already started the next ones after that, maybe because they know they're going to sell like crazy. So that would be a smart way to do it. It still seems quick with
Well, I
how long
think
games are taking.
sorry.
Yeah.
I think like The Witcher 1 is very different from The Witcher 2. The Witcher 2 is very different from The Witcher 3. I don't think we're going to see that difference in this new trilogy. I think it's going to be like the same core. And almost like Blood and Wine and the other DLC for The Witcher 3 were like pretty large, self-contained but part of the whole chunks. Like I don't think we're going to get that out of the trilogy. I think we're going to get like three kind of games that are already maybe like planned and it's kind of just like populating the quest lines and like getting from A to B or A to Z.
So maybe that's it. Instead of a main game and 2 pretty hefty expansions, it's what they call in 3 games, which is kind of the same amount of content as what The Witcher 3 plus its expansions were, but it's just released as 3 games. That would still be a lot of content.
And if it's not a 150-hour game 3 times, I'm kind of cool with that, to be honest. Like, I'd rather have it separated into three. And some, like, it's a confirmed trilogy. They've got the money for it, so you might as well, like, do that Marvel Cinematic Universe thing of, like, ending on a cliffhanger because the next one's going to come.
That actually could be a much better way to play it. So potentially very promising. And as you say, more accessible for less time available people.
It'll still be a lot of time, though, I think.
It might be like a 20, 30-hour main quest line and a 100-hour if you want to do all the side stuff, which is fine if that's what you want to do. That's a great way to do it. Maybe one of the two kind of side Witcher games from external developers will come before that. If that's like a few years away, maybe one of them is further along in development than we know about, and maybe that kind of slots in. Probably the one which is the main Witcherish game, as opposed to the one in the Witcher universe, because that could probably come alongside a full trilogy.
Yeah.
But it's hard to figure out where they slot in, and then where does Cyberpunk fit in?
Well, there's so many unknowns. Like, is this new Witcher trilogy following like Ciri? Is Geralt still around? Like, if it's not Geralt, like, is that the side story? Like, is he relegated to side story? Like, there's all these cool things that they could potentially do, and like, it's all so unknown.
Yeah.
But they've obviously spent time to craft, like some sort of timeline.
Well,
maybe
that's what you thought when Disney bought Star Wars, and it turns out they did not give a shit. So maybe.
Well, I hope that CD Projekt Red won't burn us because, like, the Witcher is absolutely fantastic, and like the TV show is doing really well. In the same kind of vein, like that, I haven't seen Cyberpunk Edge Runner yet, which is the Netflix animated show, but like it's getting rave reviews, so that's probably bringing people back to Cyberpunk. You said you haven't seen it, so that's obviously not why you're back into Cyberpunk. Like, what's the draw card for you?
Well, I'm back with like everyone else because Cyberpunk, like despite being nearly 2 years old, just hit like its Steam and I think one of the consoles like top played lists. Like it's hit its best time ever, and I think it is because of Edge Runners. It's done like really well. It's got a massively positive reception, so I'm keen to check it out at some point. I've only restarted it because I've hit that point of my backlog of there's nothing like it's been sitting there for ages. I've been meaning to play it, and the only reason I haven't is because it's kind of been like, oh, this is got like it's a big game and it's a commitment to play it. And I've decided to like, ever since I finished Elden Ring, I've been putting off starting another big game because it's just going to be effort. As you know, after Elden Ring, I played Mass Effect 3, and then I was like, I just need to have a break from like I just need small games. But there's like a window now just before like God of War still a month or so away. Now it's time to get a good chunk out of the way. And it's a good game. It's a commitment to play it. I rushed through The Witcher 3 so quickly, and it's not the way to play it. That was because I was committed to my craft and I had to get that review out straight away. I don't even have to save for it because it was on like a debug PS3 or 4.
Oh, that's right.
So I had got like my 90-hour game, which I don't even have. And I've always been like, I'll play it again. It's fine. But of course, I haven't played it again. But look, that's another one.
It's a big commitment. It's a big commitment.
That's getting a current gen upgrade. Or did it get it already?
Has, I think.
Has. I was going to say, yet another one they're working on. But as you say, the CD Projekt Red announced all this stuff to investors. And it's similar to Ubisoft announcing 105 Assassin's Creed games are coming. I think it's mainly to appease investors. They've kind of probably realized we're at the point where this stuff is going to get leaked publicly, so they may as well just tweet it as well. And there's always like, it kind of seems like someone puts it on their LinkedIn and then they change job and it gets leaked that way if it doesn't get leaked by our investors. So that seems to be the reason why, but it also does seem like they're announcing way too much stuff too quickly. Like the excitement of the big reveal somewhere, the logo coming up on screen, it's kind of gone now. We know that there's like Witcher coming forever. We know that there's a Cyberpunk sequel. But it just seems to be how it is now.
Well, but the weird like antithesis of this is not a CD Projekt Red, but like on the other hand, you have EA, who's done absolutely nothing with Need for Speed. They announced that they were making a new game in 2020. They took Ghost Games and made it Criterion, and then they acquired Codemasters and put that into Criterion. And they've been working on the game in whatever configurations they're in till now. It's coming out this year, and like that's all we've really heard, like an investor call saying, yeah, it's still coming out. And I think there's a reveal next week, but like there's not many months left in the year. There's not a dedicated release date for this Need for Speed game. There's not a name for this Need for Speed game. Like that's the other side of this thing. Like when is the marketing plan coming to fruition here?
We saw that a little bit for games in 2020, like the early pandemic days. People just like no one knew what was going to happen, so they just didn't announce stuff. And then they would just like tweet, "Oh yeah, this game's coming out in 2 months. We haven't even announced it yet." And I kind of got that because like there were no big events. No one really knew. I'm going to assume up until pretty close to getting to that gold point, going gold, that this is definitely coming out. Like there were just so many delays. But now that it's getting a little more on track, I think it sounds like Need for Speed may have had a few issues, and that's why. Or a few unknowns. Maybe they weren't committed to it coming out this year until kind of like now, and they're kind of like, we'll just wait until we definitely know, then we'll announce it. Or they were waiting to know that like Forza's definitely not coming out or something. Yeah, that's a suspicious one, but that's happening a bit less.
Well, and it's a good segue, I think, because we're running low on time, man. That's a good segue to this week or fortnight or whatever we're calling it now in delays. We've got some new ones. And one of the big ones, of course, is Skull and Bones, which was on again, off again, on again, off again, in limbo, maybe canceled, back again. It was supposed to come out sometime this year, I think November. It's recently been delayed a fourth time in as many years, or maybe even less, to March 2023. Like, is this almost vaporware? Is it like borderline becoming Beyond Good and Evil 2, which is now like the most delayed game of all time or something? I don't know if that's true, but
don't call it Duke Nukem 3D, which did eventually come out and was an absolute shocker.
Forever.
Forever, that's what I'm thinking of, yes. Duke Nukem Never. Yeah, this was a weird one though, because it's like, as you say, it was announced so many years before. I think it was announced 2018, maybe even 2017, like it was ages ago. And then it was like it got the release date this year, so they must have been confident. I think this is what EA was trying to avoid. And then like it was only last week it got delayed. It's like 5 weeks out from its release, they delayed it.
Like, it was a huge marketing push. Like it was like, oh, it's back, and like here's it had a whole like place of pride in the Ubisoft forward or whatever that thing was.
It was to do with like it had some play testing or something, and then reception was negative. They that got workshopped by their comms team pretty heavily, and it was, we've heard you and we've realized that this is a great game and it's ready to go and it's definitely totally finished, but maybe we could make it a little bit better. So maybe March is not going to be. It's going to get delayed again potentially. No, it can't. But it's like
at a certain point, they're just gonna push it out and just hope for the best. Like I think the last time I saw it, maybe the first time I saw it, was like 2017 or 2018, and like it played like the pirate ship battles of Black Flag.
which
and,
you did.
and Black Flag was good because that had more things around it. But like that's all it was.
Has it been delayed a fifth time even? Because I'm pretty sure it got announced the same year as Sea of Thieves, and it was very much a wise, and it was meant to come out that same year. So I think that was that 2017 or was that 2018?
I think
18 maybe.
Whenever
it was, it kind of seemed weird that we've suddenly, like, we had Black Flag in 2013, 2014, and then we had a bit of a lull, and it was kind of like Ubisoft should have done more with that cool pirate game, which they essentially built Assassin's Creed around. And they kind of did. They did Assassin's Creed Rogue, and they kind of left it. And then Rare had this pirate game, which was all multiplayer focused, and it kind of seemed like Ubisoft is doing the same thing, but a little more seriously, and then it just disappeared. So, like, it must have been 2018, because then I was at E3 in 2019, and it was just like, we don't know what that game is. Don't ask us anything. Something like that.
like yeah, like I don't know. Like it didn't really make me excited to play it back then. It needed work, and like I kind of feel like we're still at that point now. Like it went to playtesting for the general public ish, like a closed test obviously, and like I feel like that same sentiment is kind of being echoed back now. So like I don't know what you can do. Maybe like its time has passed. Like I think Ubisoft would have been better to strike while the iron was hot and just like push it down your throats like Black Flag timed.
Yeah, I think they wanted to have some legs, but I mean, like, Sea of Thieves launched and it kind of died straight away, and they slowly rebuilt it. But that wasn't nothing to do with the play, like the gameplay. That was fine. It was just it had no content in it.
Yeah.
And that slowly rebuilt, and now it's still doing quite well years later. So, Skull and Bones, I think they're trying to avoid that. They're trying to have something which is successful at launch, but as you say, they need to push it out at some point. It must have got some pretty bad criticism for them to say 5 weeks out, don't launch.
And I guess in a similar sort of related vein, like Grounded from Obsidian finally, came out of early access and is a full-fledged game and has a story mode and all this kind of thing. And like, I don't know, I played it before and I'm like, I'm not digging this. It's not for me. I played it again. I'm still not really not digging it. It's not for me. But it's a more robust release if you're so inclined.
Certainly some benefits doing that early access style release and getting your community to playtest for you and to get it up to that quality you want when you launch it. But doing that over 2 years or whatever they've done, I don't care that Ground is launched. Xbox tried to make a point of like, look, this game at 1.0, we're finally releasing it. It's kind of like, that's an old game. It's kind of like, if like, it only works because this is a Game Pass game that's digital only. If they try to now put it in a shop, on disc on a shelf for $99, everyone would say this game should be $10. Like, it's ancient.
Yeah.
And we get that you, as developers, think you've just finished it, but to us, it feels like it came out years ago.
Well, and maybe that's what Ubisoft needs to kind of do. Like, put it out on Ubisoft Connect, put it out on Game Pass, put it out through the Ubisoft channel of the PlayStation, whichever plus tier you need to be on, and kind of just, like, put it out and, refine it as you go and be like, enjoy it if you want, and kind of just, like, cut their losses.
Well, we've had that. We've also had Company of Heroes 3 has been delayed until February 2023, which is surely going to be one of our last games to be delayed out of this year. We're already into October. You can't have too many more. I think that was meant to come out in November, December. There can't be too much more stuff to be delayed. That one's not a big delay, though. My only concern is, why have you selected February 2023? That month is absolutely jam-packed. There's like a game out every day. It's ridiculous. Like, either go, well, January's pretty busy too. Like, push back. If you're going to delay now, push back to like May, June. The start of the year is ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess like it's a very niche game. It's RTS. I don't think there's a lot of RTS coming out in February, but also just like we all have finite amounts of time. So if you're sort of an RTS fan, that's maybe going to be the bottom of your list. So questionable. You're right.
Well, that's us for this week in delays. We finally got to the end of this show. We're going to be back next week, and we're going to have been at PAX. We're going to have seen games in the flesh, in person, and we'll be able to debrief all of that. And we may even run into some of you. You may at some of your panels.
Yeah, come say hi. If you see us, by all means, I'll maybe have. If I don't have a backpack, I'll still have a bunch of Stevivor stickers or something. So if you see
Ooh.
me and say hi, you might get like some swag yourself out of it. It's not
Get some
it's not an Amazon Prime Video The Boys pin, but it'll maybe you can hold your beer in a Stevivor stubby holder, because highly sought after.
I'll take one.
I'll give you one. You don't have to even find me, Ben. I'll pick you up from the airport and it'll be the first thing I give to you. How's
Yeah.
that?
What swag?
And you can use it at the parties that we go to. I think we're going to the Bethesda World of Bethesda thing that night, which is
Yes.
open to the public the whole weekend. Check it out, like Starfield and Wolfenstein
Yeah, that'd
and
be cool.
Fallout things.
Hopefully they have those themed drinks and food options. I know they had the Elder Scroll at PAX a few years ago. A scroll named after an edible scroll named after a paper scroll. It was pretty good. And no doubt they'll have some weird drinks as well. So go for those ones.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk to you next week, Ben. How do we find? Oh, like I'll see you in 2 days, but we'll talk to everybody. You know what I mean. Jet lag. How do we find you on the internet?
I am Ben_Salter on Twitter. Where do we find you?
SRightAU, and in person on Friday and Saturday, as I've already detailed, at PAX AUS in panels, and at the Melbourne Public probably most other times. Buy me a beer? Maybe I'll buy you a beer. I'm buying a lot of people a beer already, so buy me a beer. That'd be great.
All right, we'll see how that goes. Certainly, you'll get a stubby holder. Come and find us for some swag. We'll find Steve for some swag, and we'll see you next week.
Done.